Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to a live show. I thought I'd do a live show for our 5 things we learned in news update because there's quite a few things to talk about, and I guess going into the international break we can have a little bit of a chat on things. But there's some news that's come out obviously on Qatar that's a little bit of a boost in terms of Qatar, and then I also want to get into what Beckham said and why that could be significant because of Beckham's links to Qatar and more. Also, Manchester United looking at making a January signing. They're looking at the Brazilian market. There obviously are some good players in the Brazilian market. We've been linked to Luran and Marcos Leonardo a lot lately. We even linked with Sombrano, who's in the Ecuadorian market. But Manchester United and Bayern Munich, apparently the two teams exploring Luis Guilherme or Guilherme. I don't know how you pronounce the surname. Guilherme, Brazilian midfielder, 16. I think he's just turned 17 years of age. Man United and Bayern Munich are two of the teams exploring him, but actually some reports came out to say that United are quite interested in bringing in a young South American talent in the January window for an affordable price. With Sancho going, they're looking to maybe bring in someone quite young in that Brazilian market that could be in a sort of 20 million fee, could be Marcos Leonardo, could be Luis Guilherme, could be even someone else. So we will discuss the players that Manchester United have been linked with in January. We'll obviously do 5 things we learned, and then we'll talk about a few things Ten Hag said. Ten Hag obviously spoke about the mentality change at United and what was kind of needed and how they fought to the end, which was the most important thing. Because to be honest, it wasn't the prettiest game, it wasn't the best game in the world, but we got the win, and I think it's a massive thing to just go into the international break with the win behind us as well. What do we learn from yesterday's game? That McTominay needs to play further forward and Bruno should be wasted on the wing, and I agree with that. Again, that's not actually in my 5 things we learned, but I do agree with those points. So people, please do hit that like button if you have not already, and of course subscribe down below if you are new. So we're going to talk a little bit about yesterday's performance. We got the win, that's the most important thing, but it wasn't pretty, it wasn't the best game, and to be honest, it was crap for 90 minutes, and I lost all belief that we were going to turn it around. Once it got to about minute 70, I was like, yeah, like when they went 1-0 up, I thought this is going to be deja vu of Brighton, Crystal Palace, you know it. But I was like, maybe they'll come out in the second half and turn it around. And we looked a lot better in the second half. We had a lot more control in the second half. But again, I pretty much gave up mentally by about minute 70. I was on about 3 hours sleep. I generally was just like losing all hope. And then McTominay made it 1-1, thought get in. And then obviously we got the winner 2-1, which was absolutely fantastic. And we needed that. Ten Hag needed that. And I think the importance of that win should not be underestimated going into the international break. I saw someone say that this win has come at a good time with the international break. I saw someone say that this was a crucial last-minute winner, potentially changing the narrative of the season, certainly changing the narrative before the break. The reaction and emotion during the celebration by Ten Hag showcased that the international break allows time for players to return from injury, namely Varane, Malacia, Reguilon and Maino. Getting Varane and the left-back in can push Amrabat in midfield and provide us with the natural width, and Kobe Mainoo can also return to the midfield as well. The season has been really poor, however, we can still put a run together, but it must start right away. And I saw someone say that on Twitter. I think it was Ethan, and I think he makes a good point. It was the fact that the win itself is really important because we now go into the international break on a positive, and we'll come back on a positive. Because last international break we went into it with the Anthony case and the Sancho case, and then obviously we came back from the international break awful because we had all the negativity around. We've actually gone into this international break on a positive, but we also know after the international break we're going to get our left back, we're going to get Varane back, and we're going to get Maino back, who 3 players that can make such a big difference. And even Amad Diallo is going to be expected back later in the season, who could make a big difference. So I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with the win and all that going forward as well. The result was key. If we lost all the negativity during the break, but not sure I saw much to build on going forward. And I agree with Alex here. You know, the result at the end of the day is the most important thing. The 3 points is the most important thing. Did I look at that and think, oh, we can build on this, we can build on that, we can do this, we can do that? No, there wasn't a lot to build on, but it's just about the positivity going into the break. And I'll say this, I got stick on Twitter for apparently not celebrating enough when it was 1-1. Like it's gone viral. It's got like 500,000 views, a clip of me. Because when we go 1-1, I'm like, yes, get in. Let's hope it counts. Come on, let's push for another. And I'm doing that. Like, I'm happy. I'm like, yes, get in. But we've gone 1-1 to Brentford in the 93rd minute. You know, I've watched 93 minutes of crap. I've been live for 3 hours, and McTominay makes it 1-1. And I'm like, yes, get in. And apparently, I'm not a fan because I don't celebrate enough. To an equaliser to Brentford in the 93rd minute. I'm relieved. I'm happy. I'm not going to fake it and scream at the camera, "Oh my God, wow, wow." Why would I scream and gas up 1-1 with Brentford? I was, first of all, my first thought, you saw it if you watched along, was VAR. I can't even celebrate this half as much these days because I went mental when Garnacho scored versus Arsenal and Højlund scored versus Brighton just for VAR to rule it out. So I just see McTominay equalises in the 93rd minute. I think that's the point. Get in, relieved. Let's hope VAR count it because what VAR's been like. Let's push for another. And apparently, Alice doesn't celebrate enough. But McTominay, when he scored, he got the ball and was like, come on, let's push for another. McTominay didn't go into the Stretford end because we didn't want 1-1 to Brentford. We wanted to win. Like, I'm relieved with the point, but I wouldn't be gassing up the point. So I get a stick on Twitter today for not celebrating enough when it's 1-1. But then I get stick for over-celebrating 2-1 and I'm over-celebrating a win to Brentford. And I'm like, so I'm over-celebrating a win to Brentford because it's only Brentford, but then I'm under-celebrating, making it 1-1, and I'm not a man. I honestly, the internet today, I was very surprised by its reaction. But apparently, Alice was meant to go mental when we made it 1-1. I was very happy when we made it 2-1, but when we made it 1-1, I was relieved. And I'm not going to go mental with the way VAR has been as well. But yeah, we'll get back into the 5 things we learned. We'll get back into the news. We'll get back into some of the takeover stories and more. So I want to dive into the takeover news quickly. And I've got 2 stories on the takeover. There's the Beckham situation, and then there's one that's come out from sort of Ben Jacobs, and Fabrizio Romano did say a few things as well. So Beckham said today, or last night, he said, I believe I know the right people to take Manchester United back to the top. And the interviewer said, could that be Sheikh Yassim? And David Beckham smiled and said, we'll see. And then Beckham said on the need for Manchester United to take over Saga, he said, for the club, for the fans, for the players, for the manager as well, one of the biggest clubs in the world, we want stability. That's the most important thing. So Beckham sort of spoke about stuff going on with the takeover and that. But Swedish Rumble, I think, broke this bit down quite well in terms of Beckham with the takeover. Is it anything worth getting hyped about or anything like that? And Swedish Rumble said this. He said, potentially a bit of a bomb from Beckham, who is seemingly taking sides and announcing that he might get involved in some capacity with the below quote during a trip to Qatar. Just to rehearse, Beckham obviously has big connections with Qatar. You know, obviously he was PSG's first big signing. Beckham was an ambassador for the Qatari World Cup. Qatar wanted to buy a stake in Beckham's team into Miami in 2016. A deal was cancelled after MLS owners would not approve Qatar. Qatar struck huge sponsorship with Inter Miami worth $200 million in 2020. Beckham has very good connections with Qatar, and Beckham's saying stuff about Qatar. So, as Swedish Rumble said, what's my thoughts on this? Does Beckham know something? Look, it's impossible to know. People talk. We had Rio report, and it's true. Beckham probably, if someone's going to know something, it's going to be Beckham. But Rio thought he knew something, and he didn't. You know. I've several times in the past mentioned that I want to see something done between 9-2 and Beckham. Qatar wants to build a multi-club group like Abu Dhabi. Honestly, I don't see why Ineos couldn't be in the consortium like that too, with Nice and the Sun. Maybe that is what 9-2 and Ineos master plan is, more or less identical bids, force the Glazers to take one and then join forces. That would be interesting. I don't think that would happen, but that would be interesting. It was said, ultimately, for us to get Glazers out, someone must meet the Glazers' asking price of $6 billion, which is ridiculous. If the Glazers were committed sellers at the level of current bids, we would have had a transaction by now. To be brutally honest, I don't think we can say that 9-2 and Ineos are in the running right now before they submit new higher bids to the Glazers. 9-2 made it take it or leave it offer with a deadline, and the deadline has passed 4 months ago. If 9-2 can obtain more financing, raise the willingness of how much they're prepared to offer or whatever, then 9-2 could be successful, but it's going to take more than what's on the table right now. And I think he's absolutely right with that. I think with the takeover, with everything going on, at the end of the day, yes, Sir Jim is reconstructing his bid, but he's not offering them more money. You know, Qatar's aren't doing anything with their bid. We're kind of in a situation right now where actually with the takeover and the bids and everything, it's just a bit like, I don't think anything really happens until anyone ups their bid. It's like we can't take Sir Jim or Qatar super seriously until they up their bid. But the thing is, they could up their bid. Qataris are saying they're not going to up their bid, but they could up their bid. David Beckham obviously hints at a few things. And I think the takeover itself and all the news and stories around it is just, it's got to that point where it is boring, isn't it? It's absolutely boring because it's just like at the end of the day, we know nothing's going to happen until someone ups their bid. So now we just got to sit here, hope, and obviously pray that someone does up their bid. But the interesting thing that is coming out is about Manchester United potentially doing some deals in January, which I want to get into. And then I want to get into 5 things we learned as well. And as Alex B says, Beckham is genuinely connected up to Qatar, unlike Rio. You know, if Rio says something now, we're all a bit like, but if Beckham says something, there is definitely some credibility in there as well. Eric Ten Hag needs to start selecting based on form and balance. Those underperforming need to be dropped and more positional balance needed, 100%, 100% as well. They brought Messi. Yeah, anyone else been watching the Beckham documentary? I haven't got round to watching it yet, but I will watch the Beckham documentary maybe next week when I get a bit more time. But I've heard a lot of people thought the Beckham documentary is good, and McTominay said that the Beckham documentary actually like motivated him when coming on the pitch. So, you know, always positives for that. So who are Manchester United looking at? So it was said today, exclusive, Manchester United likely to face competition for potential wonder kid transfer, says expert. Bayern Munich are likely to be another potential transfer suitor for highly rated Pelarimus wonderkid Lewis Graham, according to Romano. So this is from Fabrizio Romano, this story. Fabrizio Romano said that it was said by Fabrizio Romano that Man United and Bayern are looking at this player. It was said the Brazilian youngster looks like a superb talent, and Romano says a number of top clubs have been scouting him recently, with Man United and Bayern among names interested. It was said that Graham looks like a player who has a big future in the game, and one imagines you have plenty of options open to him if he decides to make the move to Europe in the near future. It was said the 17-year-old midfielder could do well to choose the likes of United or Bayern for his next move, as both clubs with history and tradition of promoting and developing young players, as well as, of course, challenging for big trophies and playing in the Champions League. Well, probably not much longer with us. But it was essentially then continued on by saying, discussing the player situation today, Romano said that Bayern Munich and United were among clubs in attendance for Brazilian gem Lewis Graham 2 days ago. He's very talented, and Bayern and United are keeping an eye on him. He said, let's see if a bid goes in, but there are about 4 or 5 clubs interested in him, and it's going to be a certainly interesting situation to keep an eye on. It was then said by Fichese that obviously Manchester United are exploring the Brazilian market with a belief that they could afford a Brazilian talent to come in January, potentially in the attacking midfield or even right wing role to fill Sancho, with Ten Hag desperate to sort of add depth and reinforcement to his attack as well. Any return date for Shaw reported? Sort of after the international break. It's more going to be November, December as well. We really need 2 good defenders. Well, that's what I want to talk about as well. So Manchester United obviously looking at this young Brazilian talent to sort of play in the 10 role and right wing going forward. Maybe a long-term replacement for Bruno Fernandes that's going 30. Man United are actually starting to think about the future of Bruno and potentially long-term replacement and that. So they're obviously looking at this guy. But Manchester United are exploring the centre-back market. Now, Manchester United and Ten Hag want 2 centre-backs. So Ten Hag, from what I've heard, essentially in January wants either Todibo or Braithwaite, who's at Everton, Jared Braithwaite, young centre-back, and then in the summer he'll want like an Antonio Silva, because Man United, and I've heard this from inside sources at the club, want 2 centre-backs. And what does that mean? We'll get 2 centre-backs? Does that mean the Glazers will buy 2 centre-backs? No. But Manchester United, Ten Hag, the plan is 2 centre-back signings in 2024. Now, Ten Hag thinks it's possible to get someone like Todibo or Braithwaite in January, and then in the summer, he can go and get someone like Antonio Silva. Because of Varane's age and injury record, because of Martinez's injury record, and him not particularly rating Maguire, Lindelof or Evans too much, Man United are looking at 2 centre-back signings. So obviously one of the options we're looking at is Todibo, who had a fantastic game yesterday. And I think it highlights how much Manchester United need to go and get a centre-back in January. I thought Johnny Evans and Maguire were brilliant yesterday, but we are just in a position with the injuries, the defensive troubles, that I think for me, we definitely need to get sent back in January. So on top of looking at players that can sort of play right wing, these Brazilian gems, obviously Marcus Leonardo is a player we've been linked to a lot. Man United is still looking at centre backs in January. Ten Hag wants a centre back in January, but you never know if we will as well. People say Todibo. Todibo broke the record yesterday. It was crazy. I don't know if you heard about it, but Todibo actually broke a record yesterday for like the most passes or most touches a defender's had in football. I'm going to show you this here. This is absolutely crazy before I get into the next story, because this is mad, I think. So this is obviously Todibo. This is his passing map. 165 successful passes in a game. And look how many of those are forward. 165 successful passes in a game. Absolutely crazy. 176 in total. Basically saying he's every 30 seconds, this guy was making a pass. Like, that's the way you got to look at it as well. You know, these are the forward passes. 67 successful forward passes in a game. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. How good he was yesterday. You know, so it'd be really nice if United did go and look at him in that January market, but I'm not sure if we will as well. Qatar needed for proper depth and quality in the market, yeah. And this is why I hope we get this advancement with the Qataris, because obviously a story came out like 2 days ago that the Qataris are preparing to make some changes sort of November time and want to acquire Manchester United ahead of the January transfer window. And that would be nice, but you just don't know what to believe. Give Me Sport also said that they've got a Sheikh Yassin Man United transfer update, and Ben Jacobs provided an update on the takeover to Give Me Sport as well. He said a few things, and it was said on the takeover in regards to Qataris. It was said here, and this was an interesting report by Give Me Sport. It was said it's almost 12 months since the Glazers put Manchester United on the market, aiming to sell the club for somewhere in the region of $6 billion. There have been two primary contenders to buy the club, having different stances on the Glazers' presence at Old Trafford. It was said, according to the Times, Sheikh Yassin will not raise his $5 billion offer to buy Manchester United from the American family. However, the Glazers insist that $6 billion is the asking price for the club. It said that Yassin's main rivals, Ineos chairman Sir Jim Ratcliffe, altered his tactics this week after reports emerged that he would offer $1.5 billion for 25% of the club. If the Englishman's bid is accepted, the Glazers would remain in charge of United, but the Times report that Sheikh Yassin and the Qataris see the offer as a way of forcing them to get closer to the Glazer valuation. So obviously it was said that the Qataris think that this Sir Jim Ratcliffe stuff is nonsense, and the Glazers are trying to force them to up their bid by using Sir Jim. It was said that Sheikh Yassin's offer remains at $5 billion due to several factors. Manchester United's poor start to the season on the pitch under Ten Hag makes the club less appetising for the Qataris to up their bid. The Red Devils have lost 4 of their 7 league games and are sitting rock bottom of their Champions League group. On top of this, United are $1 billion in debt, meaning prospective owners would have to take on the void or cash to repay the debt itself on top of buying the club. Furthermore, Old Trafford and United's Carrington base require serious upgrades that have fallen below standards of the Premier League rivals, which could even cost at least another $1 billion on top of that. Last month, the Daily Mail reported that Manchester United would be taken off the market because the Glazers want to sell the club in 2025 instead. However, Ben Jacobs told Give Me Sport later that month that sources close to the sale said it was still active. Now, Ben Jacobs came out and spoke about the all or nothing bid. Ben Jacobs claimed there's no scenario where Sheikh Yassin would allow the Glazers to stay at the club. Sheikh Yassin wants the full club. Ben Jacobs says that Sheikh Yassin is still committed to the full buyout of Manchester United, which means 100% of the club, including the Glazers' share. He will not budge on that. It's an all or nothing bid. There's no scenario where 9-2 Foundation and Sheikh Yassin would entertain the cause of the Glazers being allowed to stay at the club. They want the full club. They don't want a scenario where there's a minority investor where the Glazers remain. They don't want any scenario where they don't have 100% of the club. That's unlikely to change. They've always been clear in that position. It's just about whether or not they can agree on the price. As a consequence, they may have to go higher and ultimately eventually pay what it takes. So it was said potentially the Qataris are going to have to go higher, but they're not interested in keeping the Glazers here. It said in regards to the takeover right now, it seems to be at standstill. And developments depend on potentially the Qataris upping their bid, which they don't seem to be doing. Now, other sources have said that the Qataris plan to actually rehash their bid in October, November time to try and come to an agreement with the Glazer family. However, that's waited to be seen. So I think that's how I would probably sum up this whole takeover situation, but just by reading that news today. And I do think that this whole Sir Jim reconstructing his bid, the Glazers want to stay, is just a big tactic to try and get more money out of the Qataris. I really do. And $5 billion is more than reasonable. Just shows how greedy the Glazers are as well. 100%. We're on 97 likes, guys. We've got 400 people watching. Please do hit that like button if you have not already, and of course subscribe down below. Let's see if we can hit 200 likes by the end of the live stream, because I do want to talk about 5 things we'd learned from the game. Who's worse, Joel or Avram? Avram's uglier, but Joel seems worse, I think, as well. We keep needing new players. Something is wrong. Brighton, Aston Villa don't have the signings or resources we do. Every season we get schooled by mid-table teams. It's because we don't build a team effectively, because we don't have the right people at the top of the club. Do you know what's really tragic about United is I went into this season thinking, okay, we need a centre-back. I went into the season thinking we were 2 signings short. I said we needed another centre-back and we needed a player that would help with retention. Yeah, we're now 10 games into the season and I think we're a good 10 signings short. And I feel like that's such a negative mindset, but I feel like we went in too shining short and now we're 10 shining shorts. Because I look at Man United right now and we need someone like Palacios that's a long-term replacement for Eriksen. We need a long-term replacement for Casemiro, so that's 2 midfielders. We need 2 centre-backs because Varane and Martinez are always injured. We probably need an improvement on Anthony at right wing, and then we probably need someone else that can come in at striker to take the pressure off Rasmus Højlund because he's so young. Now, I think Rasmus Højlund's good, but you see Rasmus Højlund be good in moments because he's young. He's going to have that inconsistency. Do you know what I mean? I look at United right now. We need a striker. We need a right winger. We need 2 midfielders. We need 2 centre-backs. And then you can potentially argue fullback, but I think Delo and Wan-Bissaka could do the job for another season because just too many bigger problems come up. And it's mad because I thought we were only like 2 players off at the start of the season, and I was just annoyed we didn't get that centre-back and maybe that marquee midfield signing that we needed. But now I feel like we're many signings off. We've always known we've needed another attacker. We've always known we need another defender and need another midfielder. But now we need 2 attackers, 2 defenders, 2 midfielders. And look, we are looking in the Brazilian market at some understudies. And what I'd like United to do is go and get a Casemiro understudy, someone that is like 18 in the Brazilian market, Ecuadorian market, Colombian market. Then go and get someone that's 24 in their prime to replace Casemiro. And then obviously get someone like Palacios in to replace Eriksen, then get a right winger, then get a striker, then get 2 centre-backs. That's what I'd like United to do. And then you assess Onana, you assess Delo, you assess all of those players after. Now, I do know we are looking at 2 midfielders and 2 centre-backs and a right winger and a striker. And United actually highlighted those as positions on top of right back for next season. But who knows if United will act on that. I think the only thing that United would like to do in January is a centre-back if, let's say, Lindelof was sold or we actually raised some money or had Qataris. A centre-back is possible. Ten Hag wants a centre-back, but I don't think we'll get a centre-back. The only thing I can realistically see United doing in January is going in that Brazilian, South American market and getting one of those gems on the cheap who probably wouldn't make an instant impact. But we know that they are really interested in Oscar Zambrano after missing out on Caicedo as well. How could the Glazers even entertain staying on minority investment? They are mad if they think the club's value will increase any more under them. Exactly. I do think this Sergeant Ratcliffe reconstructing his offer and going for a minority stake is a big game from the Glazers to get more money out of Qatar. There's no benefit for the Glazers to stay at the club. There's no benefit for Sergeant Ratcliffe to do that. And I think the Qataris know that. And I think that's why the Qataris themselves are kind of just like, yeah, no, this is a big game from the Glazers. We're not going to up their bid because of Sergeant Ratcliffe reconstructing him. That's why the Qataris themselves, I think, are basically just like, yeah, we're ignoring the Glazers. Now, I do want to talk about 5 things we learned from the game. I've got a lot of interesting stories to get into as well. But I think as Alex said here, I think the years of suspect transfer dealings is blowing up in our face at the moment. We always seem short. But we're going to hit 200 likes, guys. So 400 people watching. If you've not hit that like button, please do hit it. Let's see if we can get 200 likes as well as I scroll through. And let's get into the 5 things we've learned from the game, because that was the main thing. And this was the main point I wanted to talk about. And then I've got an interesting story as well of some things that Ten Hag said on Ten Hag said some interesting things on Casemiro. And then I do want to talk about the guy that we're looking at signing in January, because I've got a scouting report up on him here. So I think the first thing we really learned from the game is that Casemiro needs to pass better. And this is costing us. And I want to show you some sort of statistics and stuff here. So I like Casemiro, and I'm not interested in blaming one player as a scapegoat. I'm not interested. I think Onana's made a lot of mistakes. I think Lindelof's made a lot of mistakes. I think Casemiro's made a lot of mistakes. I think Rashford's made mistakes and not been good. I think Bruno's been useless on the right wing. I'm not interested in ever saying that one player's the problem. I don't like it when people go, oh, this player, screw them. But I think looking at this and all of that, I have to say, Casemiro has been problematic this season, and I like Casemiro. I'm a big Casemiro fan, and I don't think he's the problem. And I think the system we're playing isn't suiting him, but Casemiro does need to fix up. He was world class last season. He's been good in the final third this season as a goal threat, but he's giving the ball away too much. And essentially, the big problem with Casemiro is when he's in a midfield, and this isn't all his fault. This is also the way we set up. This is partly on Ten Hag as well. But when you're in a midfield 3 of Casemiro, Mount, Bruno, and none of those players are known for being able to keep the ball and ball retention and progressing the ball, you just start giving the ball away a lot in midfield, and you can't break the lines, and you give the ball away, then you go long, then you give the ball away, and you lose control of the game, which means we're more likely to concede, which we're doing, and we're less likely to create chances, which we're doing. And, I saw this kind of highlighting what was going on with Casemiro here. And this is the forward passes versus Brentford. We see Amrabat having 37 forward passes versus Brentford. Bruno 27, Maguire 33. You go down to Casemiro, who obviously only played a half, So we're going to times that by 2 because he only played one half. And we're going to say he made 14 because he played 45 minutes. So in 45 minutes, he would have made somewhere between about 12 to 20 if he'd have played the 90 minutes. In 45 minutes, he made 7. If he had a better second half, maybe he would have played 20. But you put that in comparison to Amrabat, that's 37 forward passes. And this is successful forward passes. I like Casemiro, but when he tries to pass the ball forward, he kept giving it away, which has resulted in the goal that we conceded. And I think for me, the first thing we learned is that I do think that Casemiro, from a possession point of view, needs to fix up. Now, I want to show you what I potentially said on Casemiro to kind of explain this in better terms, because this isn't me completely going on a Casemiro, but I'm just saying, in terms of retention, this is where we need to improve. So this is what I said on the issues as well. Now, I do want to talk about other players like Bruno, Mount, Rashford, Lindelof, who's been dreadful as well. But I said Amrabat was very effective in the second half when Casemiro came off. His ability to play line-breaking passes and potentially serve as a link between the centre-backs and the 2/8s in our system is something Manchester United have desperately needed. Casemiro has been far too reckless, resulting in him giving the ball away in midfield, which led to us conceding a goal today. Casemiro, Mount and Bruno are not the best natural midfielders when it comes to progressing the ball and retaining possession. So again, this isn't on Casemiro. I'm just using him as the example because he gave the ball away, which resulted in the goal. But Casemiro, Mount and Bruno as a midfield three doesn't work. You've got to drop one of Casemiro, Mount and Bruno for Kobbie Mainoo and Amrabat, someone that can progress the ball and help retain the ball. Therefore, the midfield dynamic that we normally use, that Ten Hag seems to be Ten Hag's preferred midfield dynamic, doesn't seem to control the game. I believe players like Amrabat and even Kobbie Mainoo, who are much better in possession, could be key to resolving these issues. While I do appreciate Casemiro's contributions, he's been reckless with his passing and his off-the-ball work hasn't been up to par to justify this. Casemiro's always been a little bit reckless with his passing, but he was so important for us off the ball last season that it was fine. Like, it didn't matter because Casemiro was so good last season. Because he's not been covering as much ground this season because he's getting older, but also with the system, he's got less support. It's not justifying him giving the ball away. I don't think Amrabat was anywhere near his best, but look, he completed 4 out of 4 long balls, 62 out of 64 passes, and provided 3 key passes. This season, many of our goals we conceded have resulted in us losing possession in midfield, not just through Casemiro, but pretty much through Bruno a lot of the time, through Mount as well, and failing to trap runners. While we have other issues to address, I believe that having players like Amrabat and Mainoo could enhance our ability to control the game in midfield and improve our ball progression, rather than resorting to long ball and direct passes or constantly backward passing, which seems to be happening too frequently. I think gaining more control would hopefully result in us conceding less silly goals and being able to create more opportunities going forward. So I don't know if that made total sense or not, but I think we're playing too many footballers who just aren't maybe natural at progressing the ball or in possession, particularly in midfield. And I think we sort of bypass the midfield with the long ball going direct. We can't seem to progress the ball in midfield and build up in midfield as well. And look, as Alex said here, playing footballers out of position and not dropping those, not playing up to their standard is also killing us at the moment, which will bring me into my second point. But I think in summary, I love Casemiro. I think he's a fantastic player. But I think we've seen this season when he's given the ball away in midfield, when we're not retaining the ball away in midfield, and this isn't just Casemiro, it's just the whole midfield. The opposition is hitting us on that, and we need to fix up with our passing in midfield. And I think, the players like Amrabat and Mainoo will be key to improving that as well. Obviously, guys, Glazer's out as well. It would have been nice to see Hannibal. Now, I want to go into my second point. It was bad, but we actually got some luck. The second thing I think we learned from the game is it was a bad game, but I felt like we did get the luck that we needed in the end. We had a goal ruled out. Brentford scored a silly goal made from a Nana mistake, a Casemiro mistake, and a Lindelof mistake. And it felt like everything was going against us. And obviously, technically, it's not luck, but it is luck. But McTominay comes on and he just scores in the 93rd and 97th minute. And it was like we needed that. And this goes back to Alex's point. We aren't playing well at the moment. We were not playing well from we played all right from minute 0 till Brentford scored. And then we had a lot of the ball and didn't do much with it. And then we got the luck over the line. But what we need to do is drop those players that are underperforming. When Mount and Rashford came off, and we put Anthony and Garnacho on the right wing, on the wings, we looked a lot better because they gave us a dynamic where they could stretch the width and we could utilize space more. I don't think Rashford was particularly bad yesterday, but when he came off, we looked better because of just those simple things. I think Bruno Fernandes, I'm a big fan of him, but he's not been good because he's been playing on the right wing and he's useless at right wing. So I think another thing that United need to do is actually drop those players that aren't performing well, even if it's Rashford, even if it's Bruno, even if it's Casemiro. He took off Casemiro and Rashford and we got the win in the end. Sometimes you have to go, even if this player is really important. If they're not performing well, I've got to drop it. I've got to change it up. And he put McTominay on, and it obviously completely changed up the game, which was massive as well. I do want to talk about a positive here, which was my third thing that I think we learned, which was I think Evans and Maguire were good, and I think Dalot has been impressive. Now I think we've got to be careful not to overrate Dalot. I've seen a few people kind of overrating him now, but I was really impressed with what I saw with Diogo Dalot, and I was really impressed with what I saw with Maguire and Evans. You know, I said this earlier. I said Maguire and Evans are two players I didn't want to see anywhere near the Man United starting lineup. I honestly didn't want to see them anywhere near the Man United starting lineup. But the more like yesterday, they were good. They didn't put a foot wrong. You know, the bad defending was from Lindelof, and Onana couldn't make a save. You know, Maguire was passing the ball forward a lot. Evans was passing the ball forward a lot. And yeah, for me, I was really impressed with the two centre-backs yesterday. And I think that was one of the few positives coming out of the game as well. Sorry, Alice, midfielders are supposed to pass the ball, but I don't think it's not good enough. No excuse, our midfielders to get it together. 100%. Look, I've said with the midfielders, they're giving the ball away too much. That's the problem. The problem is the midfield's giving the ball away too much. The defence has been weak. Lindelof not marking his man. Onana can't seem to save anything. And we're just not getting a lot of control of the game to create chances as well. Qatar is needed ASAP. I agree. In a team with the right formation style, you can play players out of position you can play players out of their preferred position. You can, but I don't think it's always good to play Bruno constantly out of position. You can get away with it, but I think constantly no. And how many more times is Bruno going to play wide right? It clearly doesn't work. Why can't Eric Ten Hag see that? I don't know as well. I don't know. Alice, City will tear Harry and Johnny Evans apart. Oh, 100%. Like, Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire were really good yesterday, and I'm judging them off the Brentford game. But Brentford had no attacking threat. Yeah, Man City, Erling Haaland, it's a different story. I'm not thinking, oh yeah, Maguire and Johnny Evans are going to be class versus City. They'll struggle, but I did think they were quite good yesterday. Eric Ten Hag is the correct manager, but United need a fit squad, and he needs to be back properly. I agree. Yeah, we've got a lot of problems as well. But yeah, blaming Onana for a defending mistake. Well, I'm not completely blaming Onana. Onana should have saved that, but the fact that it even got to the shot is like Lindelof and Casemiro should have done so much better that there wasn't a shot for Onana to save, and Onana should have saved that. There was 3 players at fault for that goal. Which brings me into the fourth thing we learned: mentality and confidence is an issue. For me, I think mentality and confidence is probably one of the biggest issues at Manchester United at the moment. And the reason I say that is I just think, you know, we looked like not scoring. We went 1-0 down, and I didn't think we were going to score. From minute 24, when we went 1-0 down, to minute 90, we didn't look like we were going to score. And then all of a sudden, we looked like we were going to score in minute 9. When we get that equaliser in minute 93, it looked like we're going to score 2 goals in 2 minutes. We played 93 minutes, but I didn't think once we were going to score or looked convinced that we were going to score. And then all of a sudden, in the space of 2 minutes, we looked like we're going to score 2 goals. It was a massive, massive difference as well. Now, the fifth and final thing we learned is it was slow and lethargic FC. I think we were too slow. I think we were too lethargic. And I think to end the video and to end the 5 things we learned, I think this team, that is the one negative with this team right now. You know, it's slow, it's lethargic. We lack the athleticism, we lack the fitness, and that's something that we massively need to fix up and improve as well. That's not been good enough as well. And right now, United's mentality is individualistic. Most of the players think that they're superstars as well, and that's a problem that needs to be fixed up as well. And 95% of PL keepers keep the ball out of the net. Onana clearly not playing anywhere near his ability. Yeah, I don't think Onana is a problem. Like, he's not been good, but I know that Onana can be good. So I don't think he will become a problem. But anyway, please do smash that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Share the video. Big up for everyone watching the stream. See you next time, and bye.